Tonight, we're going camping. And Kristen was on Gogebic for the annual ice fishing tournament.
So sit back and relax. It's Monday night and it's time for discovering
the secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak, surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill, the eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
March in the Upper Peninsula. The temperature can range from below 0 to 60 degrees. It's a great time to go winter camping. I talk a lot about the things we can find in our own backyard, and in most cases I'm talking about the Upper Peninsula in general. In the UP, you don't need to venture far to find yourself away from it all. With that in mind, I decided to take my own advice and create an adventure, well, in my own backyard, sort of. This is my actual backyard. And this is the lake that connects to my backyard. This spot right here, about a half a mile away, is where I'm headed. They said today the high would be 49. They were incorrect. At the start of my adventure, it's windy and the feels like temperature is 3 degrees. Nonetheless, I packed up my gear and headed across the lake. The short trip in the big sled does allow for a few more comforts. Some people might say an overnighter a half a mile from home isn't much of an adventure. True. To some extent at least, the further you head into the wilderness, the greater the adventure feels. But if you can make it more about the destination itself, it really doesn't matter as much how long it takes you to get there. You might say half the fun is getting there. Again, true in many cases. But I'm not sure traveling by ski, pulling a sled full of camping and filming gear will turn out to be my favorite part of this trip. Also, being in my own backyard provided me the opportunity to go out a couple days ahead and scout out the area for just the right place to camp. And for the ever important, firewood. I'm looking forward to a campfire, some snowshoeing, sightseeing, fishing, cooking dinner, a night in the woods, and a hot cup of coffee along with breakfast in bed in the morning. I'm looking forward to the solitude of it all. I found a spot under an ancient cedar tree. The tree is not going to make building a shelter very easy, but a spot with no snow is pretty hard to pass up. Before I even begin construction on my home away from home, I need to work on my heating plan. I typically end up with a bunch of small wood, which of course is much easier to work with when the equipment list features only a hatchet. But a nice dry hard maple is pretty hard to resist. I'm all for roughing it, but if I'd have thrown my chainsaw on that sled, life would be a whole lot easier. Now, time to build my house. There are typically some rules I tend to follow when putting together any sort of structure that I plan to sleep in or under. For obvious reasons, I always try to put the backside roughly to the direction I expect the wind to come from. It's warmer, of course, but it also keeps me from waking up like a smoked ham. I usually try to keep it as simple as possible. A log between two trees and a tarp angled to the ground. But today, the tree that I'm determined to live under is pretty much dictating the way this plan will come together. After a few different attempts, some rope, bungees, and a handful of redesigns, there she is, home. Well, more of a bedroom than anything, I guess, complete with mattress, blanket, pillow, and comforter. Bringing that sled did have its bonuses. It allowed me to add in a few more luxury items, like a lawn chair. With home building, firewood, and lunch successfully behind me, I think it's time for a bit of sightseeing. Yes, those are UP Best snowshoe bindings. As easy as 1, 2. A couple hundred or so episodes ago, I did a springtime show about this very lake. I've lived here my entire life, and like anybody who grew up in this town, spent a lot of time hanging out here, at what the locals call the pond. We swam here, we fished here, and all the things you do when you're a young punk growing up in a small UP town, we did here. That's the bald eagle's nest. Been here as long as I can remember. There's the Little Cedar River, which feeds the lake. It starts several miles north of town as a trickle, and gathers water along the way and feeds the lake right here. From here it flows many miles to Lake Michigan. Of course, we have to check out the spring. I'm not sure how much of the lake water comes from this spring, but it typically stays open right through winter. After enough sightseeing, it was time to swap out the snowshoes for skis, a pole, and a hatchet, and hit the lake for some fishing. Right about now, you're thinking it would be crazy to chop a hole through the ice with a hatchet. And you're right. The last of the ice shacks just came off the lake a couple of days ago. So I'm thinking I can knock the ice out of an old hole, and I'll be in business. Bad idea. That hole had more ice than I had hatchet. That's more like it. Well, he's got a ways to go before he finds out what a fillet knife is. no dinner plate for that one either. The sun was getting low, and I fished long enough to get the urge to fish out of my system. I decided it was time to head back to camp for dinner. Now, time for dinner. This is a freeze-dried meal. It's about as convenient as you can get for backpack adventures. It's light, it doesn't need refrigeration, and it's easy. All you need to do is add water. This is a steak, and that's what I'm having for dinner. A meat thermometer? You betcha. Then dark sets in. All of the setting up, chopping, snowshoeing, skiing, fishing, and cooking is done. There's nothing to do but relax by the fire. Eventually slide into the sleeping bag, the occasional crackle from the fire, and the sounds of the night. Nowadays, sharing my world with a pack of nearby coyotes is not so bad at all.
planes, Argos, and snowmobiles. Tip-ups, tip-downs, and dead sticks. It's just your typical day on frozen Lake Gogebic. Or at least your typical day at the annual Gogebic Lodge Ice Fishing Derby.
Well, this is our 38th annual Lake Gogebic Ice Fishing Derby. It's the longest running fishing tournament here in the Western UP. One of the larger ones in the whole UP. I'm not sure exactly what the number is, but I'm thinking over 200, 250 people so far this year, and the number's growing as we speak. The anglers are fishing for a little bit of everything. Lake Gogebic is known for its jumbo world-class yellow perch. It's not uncommon to catch those over a pound, and every once in a while you'll catch some 2-pound big hogs come out of this lake. We're also fishing for walleye, northern pike, crappie, whitefish, and even rock bass has a category. So the first one of those categories come in, they win prize money as well. Prizes are $1,000 for first place in the northern category, the perch category, and the walleye. We give prize money out for the top 3 of each of those categories. And the whole lake, which is about 13,000 acres, is open to the fishing jamboree. So they're spread out all over. We even have guys coming in by plane and Argo, and they're landing and registering their fish. So that's kind of a neat thing too.
Brian lined me up with the Argo to ride around the ice to see how all the anglers were doing.
A couple hits, a couple misses. Nobody's put anything on the ice around us yet.
Kind of slow, but it's good. It's better than working, right?
We moved from way over there to over here, and yep, I got it. 22¼ inch walleye, 3 pounds, 12 ounces.
I caught a lot.
You caught a lot of fish?
Uh-huh.
What kind of fish?
A lot of perches. What will this be on? I did catch one crappie.
One crappie? Awesome. How big was it?
Kind of like this big.
That big.
I could hold it. This big.
Like as soon as we got out, popped a rock bass. I'm like, oh, I should run this in. I might be the first one, and I got in there just in time. Yeah, it was great. $50 waiting for when I get back.
We got 7?
7 perch so far.
Yeah.
Got a big one, like a 1.5 pounder. So I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, it's your first time here too.
First
right?
time here, yeah. That's my personal best perch, so that was awesome.
Yeah.
We hung out at each stop to chat in hopes I could get a fish catch on camera.
Oh, that's a nice one. Oh wow, that's a fat one. Beautiful fish. Look at the stripes on that in the sun. Lake Gogebic Gold, right there.
My Argo driver is Phil Carbon from Wisconsin, who was staying at the lodge and caught a jumbo perch the day before the tourney.
2 pounds, 7 ounces. Second fish of the day. Second fish of the day. I've never fished Lake Gogebic in my life. Unfortunately, it wasn't on the right day, but I don't really care.
I got back inside the lodge just in time to see this hog registered.
14 inches. 1 pound, 12 ounces.
Which tied for first place for about 5 minutes until a bigger one showed up. By the end of the day, the cooler was loaded with fish, and Kim Marco ended up with the first place walleye.
Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next week right here on Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.